Welcome, everyone. And with that, I introduce our president and co founder of the Breakfast Club of New Jersey, Frank Kovacs.
Good morning, everybody. Today, I just wanted to take a couple minutes before we get into the presentation uh, to refocus us as a group back on really what our mantra has always been, which is helping us help you. So, two things that I wanted to point out is the first thing is the monthly meeting is only once a month, and the good portion of it is consumed with the presentation. So, in helping us help you, one of the things I wanted to point out is that we don't just have, a website, but, when you join the Breakfast Club, which is all free, you also can become a member, and with that, you get access to our email platform, which is groups.io. Now, groups.io is critical to sign up for. And the reason being is what the Breakfast Club was founded on was we used to identify job leads and we used to put them out there for the members. But the other thing that Groups.io is used for is if you're in transition, which I hear we have a few members on the call today that are in transition, please take your elevator pitch, put it in writing, and just state your name, the type of position you're looking for, uh, some targeted companies that you've identified and are pursuing, and that goes out to all of our members that are also on Groups.io. So outside of the monthly meeting and doing the different tasks as David pointed out in chat, you could reach the people that way. In addition to that, Haresh Kaswani, who is a longtime member of the group, he leads our LinkedIn group. And we have a private group on LinkedIn that Haresh sends out to everybody as they join. And it's important to join there because you may post there as well. Plus, in order when you're in transition, one of the most important things is to network and grow your network. You can reach out to the other members of the LinkedIn group and be connecting with them and expanding your network and your connections and your relationships, which is absolutely critical to helping you get identify positions and then get leads into them and hopefully even a recommendation into the hiring manager. And then we also have our Facebook group. So that's yet another way. And the meetup group, the reason we have that is twofold. One, to make sure everybody's aware of when the meetings are, because we've always been the second Saturday of every month. But it's amazing how many times we get the question, when does the group meet? So it's all out there. But you'll see that people on Meetup will specify that they intended to join the meeting. Sometimes you won't recall their name, you may not recall their face, but there's avatars there as well. So that will be a helpful way to follow up with people after the meeting as well. So, we really thought through all these different things like groups.io, Facebook, LinkedIn, Meetup, and how they all complement each other and work in conjunction to help our members. So take advantage of it. Also, if you have just career management questions, as you go through transition or career management, there's a ton of questions that have come up. Most of the questions are repetitive. So if you put them out there on groups.io, one of the members will definitely get back to you and hopefully give you advice or direction related to whatever you're dealing with. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about is communications around the Breakfast Club and really how to use it more effectively and leverage it for yourself, either in job search or career management. The other thing I wanted to talk about is back to our mission or motto, which is help us help you. For those members that are in transition, when the presentation is over, we're going to go back to a networking session. And when we're in the networking session, what I'd like to do is restore what we've done for many years, is those members in transition allow you to do your elevator pitch. Let us spend some time on it and see if we can help get you some leads or direction that may be fruitful to your search. And also, if anybody has any, career management specific questions, whether it's how to change an industry, um, you know, um, benefits, 401k related rollovers, whatever the question is, as long as it's career management related. So with that, I will turn the call over to Jerry. Let Jerry introduce our speaker. I think we have a really dynamite presentation today that everybody's going to enjoy. So I'm eager to hear it myself. So with that, Jerry, please take over.
Thank you very much, Frank. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Breakfast Club, and thank you for joining us today. As Frank said, we do have a great presentation for you today, and I'm going to introduce today's speaker. Ken Lang is the co-founder of My Networking Central, a searchable database for networking events and speakers. He facilitates an online weekly live on Tuesday afternoons with guests where they discuss LinkedIn best practices. Ken also serves as a brand specialist for Lee Heck Harrison, which is an outplacement service, and helps small business owners maximize their presence on LinkedIn through the North Jersey Chamber of Commerce and as a member of SCORE. I'd now like to introduce Ken.
Well, I want to thank you guys very much for having me today. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I definitely want to make this interactive. As I said to Jerry and David yesterday, this presentation has evolved over pretty much the last few days. And the whole idea of AI is not just AI per se, and that's why I want to make this a very open conversation as to what AI is and what AI isn't. So I'm going to share my screen, but feel free to chime in or put things in the chat. George, and I'll say this is a quantifiable thing right off the bat. I'm not going to get into technical stuff. I can't. I mean, I know some technical stuff. This is more about user experience. So, fire away with questions as you get them. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Hopefully you guys can see it. Yay. And now we're going to get to the beginning. Okay, so I figured right off the bat, since this is the Breakfast Club, we should definitely have something up here. I wish I could eat all this stuff, but again, it is what we do here. So again, this is the Breakfast Club, and it's a very important thing to make sure that you are here and you are talking about things. And this is about AI itself. Now, again, what AI is depends on different people. I put this as a general definition. It really depends on how you quantify it. So AI could be any of these things. It could be automation. It could be analytics that access your profile. It could be pods, which are basically something I'm going to allude to in a second, or it could be fake profiles that game the system. You don't know what AI is, and a lot of us actually struggle with what AI actually might be. And I was actually just put in LinkedIn jail about 2 weeks ago because LinkedIn thought I was doing automation. I actually had 5 or 6 screens open because I was doing a training session for Lee Heck Harrison, showing different people's profiles, and LinkedIn thought I was trying to game the system. So for about 2 hours, I was in LinkedIn jail. So my best practice from now on is to not have more than 2 or 3 screens open, because you just never know. Now, this is the actual LinkedIn terms and conditions. This is where LinkedIn uses it to hide behind what you can't do. So I put this in the chat here in the comments. Develop, support, or use software devices, scripts, robots, or any other means or processes to scrape the services or otherwise copy profiles and other data. Yes, it's a little generic. I would be curious, George, if you don't mind chiming in. Does this seem like something that AI would be a pushback against if you look at that, or is that still kind of open to discussion?
I think George may have stepped away for a moment.
Okay, so anyway, I'm going to look at it this way. There's enough of an area for people to hang themselves. This is how I look at it. Basically, the definition of a robot, the definition of a script, The definition of a plugin, I use a plugin. Full disclosure, the plugin I use very infrequently. There are plugins out there that are horrible, and I actually have in this chat a link to all the plugins that are banned by LinkedIn. Someone actually created a list. There's probably about 100 of them or so now. So again, that is something to consider. So you can find your Chrome extensions from here as well. I have a thing called Shield, which I'm going to allude to in a little while. Basically, there are extensions all over. You have to make a decision as to what you're going to use and not use. In general, I don't use extensions unless they've been vetted by LinkedIn or other people I know that I trust. And I have a lot of people I know that have used Shield, and they use it now less frequently because the analytics have gotten better. But it's a tool that we use, but it's not the only one. This is an example of a plugin which I don't know if it violates the terms and conditions or not. It's an AI assistant for social media. It's called EVI. There's other things that are suggested along those lines. I will not take the chance and use it. I will only because why do I want to take the chance and do it? Now, the person that's selling this, I'm going to share what his post was. Again, I happen to like the guy a lot. You guys all may know about him, but I think he does a disservice to what we're looking to. And his name is Joe Applebaum. And what I struggle with him is he wants to get a lot of relationships built. He wants to get a lot of information, and he creates pods all the time here. And the thing that really got to me about this was at the bottom it says, I want to engage LinkedIn users that want to take LinkedIn seriously and play this game as a community. That kind of really rubbed me the wrong way. We all want best practices. We all want more content. We all want more engagement. We all want more views. It's a quality versus quantity discussion. And Joe is trying to sell, like a lot of other people are. And one of the things I do is I like to meet up with people like that to understand what they're doing. I've had people pitch to me about AI and how you can do things with LinkedIn, and I'll listen. I'll listen because it helps me understand what not to do. So that's a very important consideration. And I have let Joe know privately what I think. A lot of us have. And there's a certain level of respect, but he's going to do what he's doing. So a pod, just to let you know what it is if you're not sure, it's 20, 25, 30 people that all agree to share each other's content, repost it, and kind of wink, wink. Figure with all of that, you're going to get more engagement. And LinkedIn is really trying to clamp down on it, but there's so many out there that they have absolutely no control. So it's up to us to kind of manage things. So this is an example, and I put this out as a use case for how you can use, and this is what's scary to me about ChatGPT and LinkedIn. You can have a personalized LinkedIn connection request, and I actually did this for a IT project manager. ChatGPT and AI, they are great reference tools, great for reference, but it's at the point now where you can have all of these tools do it for you. And I can tell from a mile away, as a lot of other people can, when something is there, if it's genuine or not. But when I work with Lee Hecht Harrison people who have not been in the job force for a while, I will give them this as an example, as a starting point. I say, do not do this exactly. I actually use ChatGPT a lot because I don't know what people do. I'm working with people in hundreds or dozens of industries, and they don't list what they do. So I want to give an understanding as to what I think they do, so I can help them build their resumes and profiles. But again, I would never pass myself off as saying this is what you need to do exactly. This is a great tool if it's used properly, and there's a lot of similar ones like that. But again, using this to write posts to game the system does you a disservice, a big, big disservice. So this is the latest change with LinkedIn. I'm going to go to a bunch of others later on. They give you these prompts as to what to do, and it's not a basic or a premium thing. And it's scary in a way, because if you think about how you're followed on the websites from keystroke to keystroke to things that you like on Facebook versus you want everywhere else, AI is no different. It knows what you're doing and it gives you ideas as to what to do. And when we go onto LinkedIn in a little while, I'm actually going to share how some of these things are done in real time. Do not be scared of the whole thing with AI. It's there. The biggest concern I would have is, as an employee working for a company, making sure that they have some best practices for AI. When I started years ago and I had to develop a social media policy for a company, it was very, very high level. You want to make sure a place you work at understands what AI can and can't do and what you're allowed to do. And there's going to be a whole industry, I think, of people that are going to be involved in governance. And as it is right now, recruiters are finding out that they're not needed anymore because AI is creating job specs for them. And that's a scary thought for sure. So one of the things I definitely wanted to show you here is that LinkedIn has created an AI generated recruiter, which will then send out messages to people based on different things that they have. So I'm going to actually click on this and hopefully it does work. So can you guys still see my screen?
We see the browser, LinkedIn Talent blog.
Okay, so if you scroll down to here, this shows you how someone can actually send a message. Can you see that? It personalizes the message based on the person's profile. And it drafts a message. And this is how recruiters can actually, based on your profile, send out different things to different people. And it can just tweak it. And it's a very interesting thing. I see Georgia on the call now. So what do you think about something like that?
Well, like with any tool, it can be used and it can be misused. I'll start there. Probably a couple of things. I think the biggest fear I have on this is what bad actors can do with it. Because if you really take this to the nth degree, and we've talked about those job posts that are really designed to get personal information, they could personalize that to such an extent that it would trick somebody into giving up information or data that they couldn't. So it's going to be interesting to see how Microsoft/LinkedIn is going to evolve that. That's my initial reaction.
Now my thing is, this is actually what LinkedIn says. They said this expedites the interaction between recruiters and candidates, making the outreach more tailored. As a result, generic non-personalized outreach should become less prevalent and more likely to be seen as spam. And I have seen and I've gotten a lot of recruiter messages, a lot of open messages that it's very scary in a way, but when you look at the back end and understand where it's coming from, that's why sometimes you can really determine right away it's not a message sent to you specifically. And I think it's important to look at that. Now, my big thing is collaborative. Go ahead. Did you want to say
the
something?
only other thing I would add on that, Ken, it's the danger of the easy button. That's what this is, the Staples easy button, right? So it's gonna, as you might guess, the fact that it's an easy button, it's gonna get misused.
And it even goes to the fact that when you apply for a job on LinkedIn and you think 200 people have applied, they have not applied for the job. They've actually viewed the job. So that becomes a much different conversation. But I think to know about how AI works and to understand what's going on the back end, it makes you more understanding as to what you're up against. Collaborative articles, which is something I was actually part of on the launch, is something that I have a love-hate relationship with, because it's an opportunity to engage with people. It's LinkedIn's first attempt at AI. And the more that we add to a collaborative article, the more we drive LinkedIn's AI. The problem is that a lot of the stuff that's on there is so horrible that I understand it's a learning thing, but at the same time, it makes me wonder what people are thinking about. And one of the things that we have been pushing for the last year is we want the ability as users to create the collaborative articles that make sense for us. Don't send stuff out there that we have to comment on. Again, I'm going to go to the actual post over here that talks about this. And again, this is just talking about an example. This is a collaborative article here. You have different things you can add to it. And one good thing for me, and I'm actually going to go to collaborative articles later, is it gives you the opportunity, and this is where I use the marketing aspect. I get a shiny badge for posting on collaborative articles in my space. So I get these little badges. It's a great marketing tool. I am not really doing anything that any of you can't do now, but it's just the fact that, and I've actually posted negative comments, because like one of the collaborative articles that they asked about is what is the most important thing about going to a job fair? And I'm like, are you kidding me? There is no reason to go to a job fair. And it's like, and you know, sometimes I think they put those out there because they want to get the negative feedback, but sometimes it's just amazing to me how many people actually post that's a great idea. So one of the other things we think about and we've pushed LinkedIn back to is give us the ability to rate the responses, kind of like likes and dislikes. Give us the ability to do some engagement that way, because right now anyone can be called an expert doing anything, and I think it's important to quantify what that all means. So this is, again, I'm going to go through this in more detail. This is actually a place on LinkedIn which all the collaborative articles reside in. Again, it's not a great user interface, but you can do searches for any articles you want, any place, and you can engage in content. LinkedIn has never been known to make things easy. Ideally, they would have things in a much better layout. The ones I know about are the ones that I'm aware of. Right now, you just have to go through this whole list here. Not a great list, and you can do searches, but again, it's a starting point. So this is the other thing which now has gone on to everyone else. It's the idea of building a profile. Having a profile built for you. This was a very scary thing when I did it. I actually did a test once. I changed my LinkedIn profile and my LinkedIn About section to what AI suggested I do. And I was floored at how bad it was. So again, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here. This is what LinkedIn will do. So it enhances your profile, comes up with a suggestion for your thing, and then it tells you right away, this is what we think you should have as your About section. Yes, you can edit it, but it's a scary thought, and it's based on information it has of you. So again, George, I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is what LinkedIn is now rolling out to other people.
Yeah, Ken, my first question, I'm sorry, I had to step away for a moment. Did you in the beginning, and if you didn't, it might be helpful, is this free or fee-based?
This is now going to be, it was free, it was fee-based, now it's free. This was actually done last year. So anyone has the ability to have that engaged. LinkedIn, the AI will pop up and let them know they can do it.
Okay, got it. I don't think I had seen this yet.
No, well, that's why, again, you'll be prompted for it. You may have to turn it on. But the scary part about it is that if you're not careful, again, this is LinkedIn taking information that's there based on what it thinks you want to have. Now, the other thing here, which is, again, I just want to show this here. This is actually how they create a job spec. This is, again, they can draft, and this is the whole idea of a job spec. They can write a job spec. They can come up with things they want to suggest. Based on that, they can add skills. This is why HR may be going away. And then you can do free job posts. And this is how LinkedIn and AI are actually now kind of becoming one. So again, I would love to get your thoughts on that, George, and other people too. Like I said, George is kind of more of the expert, I guess. But
so let's break this into, again, let's get back to just some basic principles, right? There's going to be good actors and bad actors, and there's going to be proactive people and reactive people, right? So I always, I kind of like to bubble that up a little bit, that lazy people will do lazy things and non-lazy people will do non-lazy things. So that's just kind of a basic premise. What I would
Right.
say is, and I'll go back to my own experiences. Back in the day, it had been ages for all the content that I create. One of the things that, most people are usually pretty bad at is explaining themselves or
Mm-hmm.
marketing themselves, right? So to me, as at least a starting point, if you look at it as a proactive tool, it's starting to give you insights as to how you might begin marketing yourself. Clearly, you've got to read it, right? If you're just clicking blindly, well, shame on you, right? So the first piece I see is I think most people would at least benefit from a tool that's beginning to give them a way to express themselves. So I at
Mm-hmm.
least see the positive there. I think the other challenge is, and as I'm listening to you talk and just kind of dreaming through this whole um, job description piece is going to be an absolute hoot. And if I can put this out quickly, give me 1 second.
Sure.
I think it's this one. One of the things that's been missing, and I may have to go back and actually put this out in the chat to everybody. One of the things I did early or late last year was I actually put together kind of a roadmap as
Mm-hmm.
to what you're going to have to do as an individual versus how you're going to go up against these companies with more resources than you have. So I think it's going to be interesting just based on what I'm seeing. There's going to be services that are going to try and match your job descriptions or match your skills against job descriptions. It's going to be like the antivirus wars, I think, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I see two different things. One, I think it's a reasonable tool if you're paying attention, because again, it's going to help you better describe yourself. I think that's a good thing.
Well, the other thing that just rolled out is if you look over there, it lists the skills that you want to have for the job. That's why it's important to have the skills. LinkedIn just gave people the opportunity to add 100 skills to their profile.
Yeah, that's another one. I was just going to go there, Ken. To me, that is insane.
No, I agree it's insane, but I'm saying that's the reason that they're doing it is based on an AI model that they want to make sure that if a company lists 10 skills and they're different skills and everything else, they want to make sure that people on their profiles have those skills. Now, no one has 100 skills really, but it also reminds you that when you have a look at it, and I do this a lot with my presentations on Lee Hecht Harrison, I do a search for jobs. I say, what's the job that you want? I want to be a project manager. I have senior experience in this industry. And I say, go look at the job specs. See what on the job specs and the description is on your profile. Maybe not verbatim, but you want to do it like a reverse investigation and research. And if you understand how a job spec is being built on LinkedIn, it's being pushed by AI, and I'm sure that the company is putting information on the back end, but this is how the recruiter can actually do it. It helps you as a job seeker to at least understand how automated it is. And recruiters are scared to death of this because recruiters now don't see that there's no need for them in a company anymore unless they can deal with AI. And there's lots of recruiters now that, I mean, they're the biggest ones that are more concerned than the job seekers, honestly, because there's no reason for them to be around anymore.
I mean, if I had to
Ken, if I could give a little perspective here.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, I want this to be a conversation.
Yeah. When we say, no one has 100 skills, believe it or not, I think everybody on the call has 100 skills that are work specific, either soft skills or hard skills. The trick is it all gets back to your branding. You have to understand your profession, your job that you're looking for. What is it that the employers are looking for out there? Now, I had the advantage, maybe some on the phone knew Randy Moore. He was a recruiter in the area for many years up in Parsippany. And Randy went off and started a firm called Pocket Recruiter. And what they did is they came up with an AI solution. Now, the way that the AI solution was working, at least in that instance, was not to remove the recruiter. It was to give better results for the recruiter. And the way the AI technology would work is, let's say I was looking for someone who was a programmer in a specific package. and they had to be very hands-on, and they had to know it specific to a certain industry. That AI was very good at reading through the text that one would submit on a job in, the resume format. And it could not only do keyword searches, which is kind of what you're talking about with the skills, but it could do contextual and proximity searches. So, there may, for example, be 2,000 people that applied for the job, and maybe 500 of them had mentioned the keyword of that specific software package that they were looking for. But the real value add was this contextual searching to understand what the person's knowledge or experience was around that keyword. So, from looking at it, it would sit there and give a more refined filter that would get you down to people that were closer matches. Now, the way the recruiter was involved, it actually helped the recruiter of going through those 2,000 resumes because, quite frankly, it may have been too much work for the recruiter in the first place to ever do what that first filter that the AI was providing for them. But what it does is the AI model is trained through interacting with the recruiter, and the recruiter looks at the results, interacts with the tool, and keeps adding to the filter and the refinement specific to that search. So it doesn't replace the recruiter. What it does is it makes the recruiter more effective in the value add that the human physical recruiter brings to the table. And it just allows them via the tool to modify that filter's logic specific to that search so that they're able to go through all of the submissions that they received. And what the claim was at the end of the recruiter working with that tool in order to modify the filtering logic, that number one, it was able to go through that whole mountain of submissions that came in. But, by working hand in hand with the tool, the recruiter's short list that ultimately was put forth was of candidates that were much better quality and much better suited to then go into a consideration and an interview process for that specific position. So
I would say,
hope that
I would
helps
say,
with the context.
I would say just to quantify, there's different types of recruiters out there too. And a lot of companies, like you have the offshore ones and the ones that are just going to throw something spaghetti against the wall. And then you have other companies that do want to embrace the technology. I think it's important for each company to know how AI works and how it can work to their benefit. So I didn't mean to make it as a blanket statement, but a lot of times I get job requirements like everyone else does, and they're probably just driven off something like this. There is no real interaction per se. It's just throwing something in there. So I do appreciate the context, Frank, very, very much.
Yeah, and if I could add one more thing,
Sure.
in the branding, the skills that you have on your profile are very critical because in totality, along with everything else on your LinkedIn profile, that is painting a picture of you as a brand. You've got to look through each component of the LinkedIn profile and realize that they're all contributing to leaving a perception with the person who's reading your profile. So one of the things I've talked about for years before, the focus was totally on which skills you had that are more hard skills that are business specific, right? But, over time, this has been modified. Number one, the skills have changed a lot. So you put your skills out there, you work really hard. But over time, as the skills change, if some of the skills that are out there are dated, well, they can actually hurt you rather than help you. So even if you have 99 plus endorsements on a skill, you got to go through each and every one and say, is this going to be something that a potential employer is going to find useful? Could it paint me as being dated in my understanding of the technology? And then, soft skills have come into vogue, in the last 10 years, and now are relied on in some cases as heavily. And the big thing about the soft skills is, to me, they speak to cultural fit. So a lot of times the decision between candidate A and B, if they're, all perfectly suited for the job, is down to cultural fit. So you also have to look at what type of environment you want to work in, what type of employer you want to work with, what kind of relationship works best for you, and make sure that your soft skills that are consistent with creating that perception of cultural fit are displayed and also endorsed on your profile. So, those are two critical aspects that, the skills section, and to me, the skills section has somewhat become watered down because, you talk about reading a profile. If you're going to have over 100 skills out there, I think way long ago, it was maybe 20 skills that were out there. And, then we even talked about reordering your skills. So those that are most critical to an employer, you want to filter to the top, because sometimes when they look at a profile, they don't even expand it to see all the skills. So, think back to a recruiter having time of, 30 seconds, 60 seconds to consider a candidate. That's what we were dealing with historically. Now, with these new AI tools, they can go through the profile A to Z, including those things that have to be expanded because the tool, and they're really going to read all that. And then you have to consider what type of perception that's leaving related to your brand and how you want to represent yourself.
I think you also have to define skills versus areas of expertise versus core competencies.
Yeah.
They mean different things to different industries. Like skills in IT are not the same as in another industry. So, and that's again, that's why it's important. There is no one size fits all. And that's why when you think about this conversation, it's really all about how does it pertain to you and how does it pertain to where you're going to be working next. So the other thing here, and I think I alluded to before, is the job descriptions. And this is what LinkedIn gathers from all the people that have their job descriptions out there. They can generate something more specific. How they use the tool depends on, it's kind of like good data in, bad data, bad data in, bad data out. If they don't get the right information from the hiring managers, they're not going to have a great job spec. But if they have the great information, and that's a whole different discussion in and of itself. This is just LinkedIn using AI to create job specs. But again, it's just to let you know. Go ahead.
Can you go back one slide on this?
There?
Yeah, so it's really in between profile building and these job descriptions. And I want to throw out kind of a couple different thoughts here on this. Number one, we are in the early phases of this. Make no mistake about it. What you are watching are these tools trying to take or examine your content to give you some type of value add or some type of answer or some type of direction. One of the things to remember about AI is that the more data you give it, the better in theory things will be. Now, when I hear 100 skills, and if I were a hiring manager and you said to me, George, I have 100 skills, I'll be honest with you, I'm already showing you out the door, because in a world of specialization, I care about the top 10. I care about your expertise. I care about, can you do these 10? Yeah, we all may have these skills, but what are you current in, number one? What I think would have to follow on this profile building is metadata, and Frank was kind of alluding to it, metadata to your particular skill. Are you an expert? Do you just have it? Do you just do it casually? The individual's going to need to quantify or provide metadata on those skills in order to elevate this. So if I were the LinkedIn product manager on this, not only would I be looking at your skills, I would be asking you to give me metadata about those skills. So now, once I have this profile built, if you go to the next slide, now you're going to watch this elevation of those job descriptions. And again, back to what Frank was talking about in terms of that context, you now present a much more data-driven persona that these job descriptions can now look at. So that's where I would see this evolving from, but it's going to be data-based. If it's just trying to scrape what we have today, this is the early innings of this.
But then the other conversation is here. Let's say if one says experience and another one says intermediate, how do you quantify that? Does
Exactly.
7 years experience match with 3 years, what someone did in 3 years or not? I mean, it's not, again, and that's a whole different rabbit hole to go down.
But just to sum it up easily, Ken, this is why we're in the early innings. These are, like, as we're experiencing these things, these are the great questions that are coming out. Okay, I can look at your profile, great, but.
Can I make a point here? I mean, this is all
Sure.
well and good, but in several articles, Harvard Business Review, Project Management, the whole idea of this is people need to get on board and learn to do AI. There's so many resources available. Learn how to prompt, learn how to use it so that you're not being gamed, right? So that you're not left behind. And a great deal of that is said people that have AI experience, are comfortable with it, familiar, can prove that they can work with it, are the people that won't get left behind. Whether you're a recruiter, whether you're in HR, it's not going to matter. It's how good and how comfortable you start to become with AI. Like, you can use ChatGPT to look at a company. Do I want to work for somebody that wants me to have 100 skills? I don't think so, because then you're expecting me to do 5 different jobs. Yeah, I want to get into something that's specialized where, like, maybe that's, that's my, zone of flow, or, however you want to put it. There's going to be other kind of tasks you got to do because it's part of a job. But I think they need some perspective. Is learn it, get comfortable with it, know it, so that you can use it to add value or gain value for yourself or whoever you're working for.
Absolutely.
So
That's
if
why
I
I
could
wanted
add a
this to be more
contrary
of a
point on
conversation.
that, when we talk about 100 skills, I'll use myself as an example. I have managerial responsibilities. I have, global responsibilities. I have responsibilities that are digital business related. I have, technical project management office and portfolio responsibilities. So think about all of those things, right? The skills, both from a technical side, a managerial or leadership side, soft skills, it's easily 100 skills. Now, with my branding, what I'm going to try and do is take those skills that I have that are the top skills that are required to do my job. But easily, the different tools I have to use, I have a whole digital ecosystem that I created that goes everywhere from architecture to development of it, to integration of it. There are so many different skills that you use. And then just as a manager or a leader, all the different skills that you have to employ. So to have 100 skills isn't that tough. But
I
I'm
think
telling you,
Frank, I
it's
think it's
all in the perception you want to leave at the end of the day as part of your brand.
agreed, but there's core competency skills that I think transcend to enable you to be a leader, enable you to do some kind of global leadership or global technology. Um, that's what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you've evolved over time, right? You've had different jobs, you had different things you learned, different tasks or skills, but that all transcends, right? So that
Yeah,
as you
but
grow
it
and you
does.
get experience, right, you master a lot of it.
Just sitting there and managing technology infrastructure that spans 50 countries
Yeah.
has so many different things as far as understanding the currency translations, understanding the different labor markets in each of those 50 countries. What are the rules for hiring people? What are the capabilities of moving assets from one to the other? Being able to get different hardware components delivered into those countries, dealing with suppliers and carriers specific to those geographies. I mean, I could go on and on. I could easily fill up 100 in the first 5 minutes. So, and that's just one aspect of the job. That's just the global aspect. So that's what I'm trying to explain. Depending on your profession, You really have to understand. Now, after all of that's said and done, with your LinkedIn profile and your resume, the thing that's really going to be the equalizer at the end of the day is your network and what relationships you have. Because when you can get a recommendation into the hiring manager, that is only done on average from the research we did for the last book, 7% of the time. And of that 7% of the people that get the referrals into the hiring manager, that accounts for over 80% of the hires. So if you can have the relationship and get that recommendation into the hiring manager, the majority, you have to have the skill sets and all to do the job, but that is the real differentiator, because that's when you operate on the speed of trust specific to Covey, and they feel more comfortable with you, and that's what gives you the final edge. But you need these credentials put together, whether it's your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your T letters, and doing qualified submissions. That gets you to the table, that gets you interviewed. At the end of the day, the biggest factor that gets you the hiring decision is when the moons align and you get that recommendation in. So yes, these are all necessary things, and you have to do them as part of your branding strategy and your approach to your job search. But don't think that they're the be all and end all. The real big thing is having those relationships and getting that recommendation in. You know, that is the big piece and the differentiator at the end of the day.
I think the more you know about AI, the better, as part of what's going on. And the whole, and again, like I said, this can be, you know, Frank is absolutely right. I mean, LinkedIn is your marketing tool much more than your resume, and all the skills there, you don't know which skills are more important than not. Again, it's your brand. Now, just to show you a couple of other things before we get to LinkedIn, this is actually what I use now. I use something called Shield. And basically what it does is I have a workspace, and then I can get in here ideas about what I'm doing. I can get word cloud. We have been told by the founders of Shield and by the people there that it is an acceptable plugin, but I don't go to a lot of plugins that often anymore because I'm so afraid of it. This is an example of some of the analytics I get, most of which now I can get on LinkedIn, but a couple of years ago, I wasn't able to. So it was a great tool at the time. There is actually a list here, which I put in this chat, of all the blacklisted plugins. And you would be surprised, and we add to it all the time. So if you're not really sure, this is a clickable list, and it was an article that someone put together, and we are always keeping track of it. I think the last time I looked, there was about 200 something there. So as I mentioned,
Ken, just a quick question on that. When you say blacklisted, does that mean that LinkedIn immediately sees it and disconnects it, or?
Yes, it means people have actually tried to use the plugins and LinkedIn has shut them down. And there's at least 200 or something on there. I think I can actually go to the link right now. Like here, you go into here, these are all blacklisted. There's so many out there. And people have been promising, go ahead.
And this gets back, Ken, to your comment earlier about having multiple tabs open. I guess this aligns to that. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, and people are pushing this on other people all the time. Everyone has the latest thing, and they don't realize more times than not that they're violating the terms and conditions. And the people that get hurt by it are people like us. I've actually had conversations on my LinkedIn Live with people that push these things, and they do the wink, wink. You're not going to get in trouble, but of course you are, because they're just trying to sell a product, and they're going to have their disclaimer that we can't be responsible for how you use it. And the other thing which happens a lot too is that people that have virtual assistants let those people use their LinkedIn profile, and that violates the terms and conditions. You have to be your own person on there. And again, this is all done by automation and by AI. So as I mentioned, I was put on LinkedIn.
Ken, isn't that like a governance isn't that becoming like a governance? Because then, I mean, LinkedIn, when I first joined, it was about networking and,
But
putting your
I'm
resume
saying
out
if
there.
I
And
if I work if I'm
wait, let me
working at a
finish my
company,
point. Wait, let me finish my
yep,
point. I don't,
yep.
now I see it, it's all about ads. It's all about, I mean, everybody's like, oh, look at me. And, it's all about clickbait. And it should not, like maybe they're trying to governance that so that it doesn't become just about that. People looking to make money or become some social media, star or something, because it kind of detracts from it now.
I'm sorry, I
Well,
didn't catch your name. What is it? The
It's
the
listen,
Elizabeth.
person speaking. I'm
Elizabeth.
sorry.
Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, what I wanted to say is think about an elevator pitch, right? Isn't an elevator pitch really clickbait?
I'm sure it is. I don't use elevator pitch,
Exactly.
but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but everybody should have an elevator pitch. So whether you're in a in networking, session or however you're meeting a person, you want to be able to present your value in such a way that you
Agreed, but
basically hook them
I'm
so
not going
that
to use
they
it
they want
to.
to know more about you.
Frank, I'm not going to use it to make money or use it nefariously
No,
to just put information or misinformation. The whole
yeah,
idea is, I think this is a good thing that I can understand my own skills, my own value, and how I can
yeah,
control that narrative versus someone
yeah,
else controlling it or misusing it, so to speak,
yeah.
right?
The point I was trying to make with the clickbait in an elevator pitch is whether it's your LinkedIn profile or your resume, how are you going to get it to stand out to the potential hiring manager so that they say they want to put you in the interview pile? Or even if you're at the interview, to select you over the other candidates. So really, you're presenting yourself, you're branding yourself in such a way that there's some level of distinction there from others. Because face it, when if they did their proper due diligence in coming up with their slate of candidates to interview, everybody that's on that list should be qualified to do the job.
Not
So
disagreeing.
now you're talking about the subtle distinction of why you over everybody else.
So you're saying these plugins are going to prevent you from doing that by not being able to use
No,
them? Oh,
no.
I'm saying use all these things to your advantage.
agree. I don't
Whether it,
disagree.
I mean, LinkedIn is a split personality. They want people to come to the platform. They do a wink, wink at times when people who do these tools have company pages and things because, again, they don't have a billion users. They have a billion email addresses, which is not the same as users. So that becomes the split personality part of this. And it's up to all of us. Again, you can create your own plugin, anyone can, but there's no advantage to it. Now, what I wanted to show you here, again, this was the slide before. This is collaborative articles. So if someone wants to give me an idea as to what they would like me to search for a collaborative article for, just to give you an idea how it works. I mean, I can do job search as an example. Frank, David, any thoughts as to what you want me to do? Because there's many, many millions here.
Nope. Actually, open it up to other people who are on the call.
Okay, sure. Like I said,
It's their job hunting.
yep. So pick a type. It can be technical, it can be non-technical, and hopefully it's here. So let's just do it that way. So if you have an idea,
First one to call out or put in chat, we'll use that.
yeah, but if you can let me know, because if
But
not, I'll just
like
go ahead.
project management, Ken, I think project management, most people would be relevant to most people, right?
All right. So if I go to P, and I'm going to look for project management, which is down here somewhere. I'm sure it is. Okay. So now I have here different things. I have project team management, project documentation. So let's call up project team management. These are all questions that come up here. These are questions you can answer. They are just created from a general AI. So does anyone want me to call up a specific question here, or do you want to see how this works? Again, these are created from LinkedIn with the expectation that you will respond. So as an example, how do you deal with team burnout and fatigue? I call that up. First, it will prompt me to say, if I do 3 articles, I get a badge, Yahoo, whatever. So it's going to say here, acknowledge and appreciate. And LinkedIn prompts you with this. This is LinkedIn's prompt that they do. And then on here, people are able to respond to those thoughts. And it's an absolutely wonderful way to start. And anyone can do this. You don't have to answer all the questions. You don't have to do anything more. But it says acknowledge it. And this is all generated from LinkedIn. Based on, and then you then see, this is what we struggle with here. We are feeding the beast by doing this. And there's no compensation for us except the badge and to make sure we have relevant information. So this is kind of where the future is for LinkedIn now. They're basically looking to make it as relevant as possible to everyone. And again, if I go back and
can I give you another vantage point on that statement?
Sure, absolutely.
Goal
I love that.
Is really, yeah, LinkedIn's role is what at the end of the day to increase their revenue.
Yep.
So really, all of these different functionality and capabilities that they're adding to the tool is to drive different types of revenue opportunities for LinkedIn, whether it's to get people to use premium, to get people to, pay for different, training courses, whatever it may be. So you got to keep that in mind. They're not altruistic where they're just looking to go out there and help the professional community in their, representing their skill sets and all. So that's somewhat what you have to see through as you look at the new capabilities that they roll out. What's the with them, what's in it for them in order to put that.
Well, Frank, it's also bankrolled by Microsoft, right? Microsoft owns it now, so that's going to have a whole different business paradigm, correct?
Agreed 110%.
Absolutely. I mean, this is to build their AI as well. From a job seeker perspective, it's great to engage. It's great to know about this. You can go down a rabbit hole. I don't recommend spending lots and lots of time doing everything, but the more you can do, you can all add to it. But you can also network with other people who have added comments. I mean, this is all part of engagement.
So one thing
and can I add one other piece, Ken?
Sure.
One of the things we're all concerned with is that AI and automation is going to replace workers, right? So what I would behoove everybody to do is to build a 4-grid matrix. Look at the things that you do in your profession and your position, and then look at things on 2 scales. On one side, how easy is that skill to automate? And on the other side, how much value it delivers to your employer? And then put the different functions that you perform into that 4 different boxes, right? Those things that are hardest to automate and also deliver the greatest value, those skills required to do those tasks are definitely the skills you want to invest in having on your LinkedIn profile and getting the endorsements on, because that's going to position you. Go ahead if you have to say.
When you engage, you get this badge up here. Like I have a badge that says Top Job Search Strategy. So if you engage, this becomes part of your brand. And that's from a job search perspective. This makes it seem like I really know what I'm talking about. And you can say top project.
Yeah, but I'm saying seek out those badges that are consistent with that.
That person's experience is what you're trying
to automate and deliver the greatest value.
That's what you're saying, right, Frank, is that it should align with what you do, what your core competency skills are, so that then maybe I got a better chance of trusting that. And maybe I'll run chat against you to understand the value of you. I mean, there's different ways you could work chat, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you got it perfect. You're spot on.
Yeah, like you go to the skills, match your skills to the collaborative articles. Something like that for sure.
Ken, if you could just click on that very first in the chat, if you just click on that blog.lawgeeks.com, this is another variation of what Frank was talking about. I actually presented this, if you can believe it, back in 2018. It's called Let me
stop sharing, actually. Where is this?
Got too many tabs open, Ken.
I know I do. What happens when you do this all the time?
What is
Are
it trying,
are you
Ken?
doing through the browser or the app on Meetup, Ken?
I'm actually trying to get out of the presentation.
Just
So you should have a share button where you could stop sharing. Maybe it's at the top.
yeah, I know. I'm actually looking for it.
If not, I can
Uh,
I can take it from you.
why don't you do that, Frank? David.
Actually, that's funny. No, I can't do it. 1 second.
Not me. Not
So-
me.
So while we're waiting, what I posted, the first one in the chat window, back in 2018, 2019, I forget which presentation it was, I had encountered this thing that was called a legal landscape for AI. And one of the powerful things that it did was, and now mind you, these are tough to find. I was lucky to trip over this one. But if you look and click on that or expand that diagram, what it did was it broke down a discipline. In this particular case, it broke down AI. And what it showed was all of the different products. And mind you, this is dated, it was 2018, but it showed you all the different products that were available in that space. Now, what you could do with that, and it kind of gets to what Frank was talking about, is if you look at those products, what they're basically telling you, and I'll pick one that was in the middle, which was e-discovery as an example. If you have anything to do with e-discovery, you got two choices. Number one, let the tool do it, number one, or B, really understand what that tool is doing and provide value on top of that. But if you're going to dedicate a skill, you might want to say to yourself, maybe e-discovery as a skill isn't something that I want to promote, largely because there's tools now that are going to do that for me. So there's this general idea, and I talked about this yesterday at PSG, you really need to understand, whatever field that you're in, what are the top 3 to 5 things that are a potential threat? Does that mean you change a skill? Does that mean you adopt a new skill? But you probably need to put something together like this and what Frank was talking about to give you a deeper insight. Because when you go on that interview, guess what? The people that are interviewing you are up against the same problem. And if you can speak the language of looking forward, that's going to be a heck of a lot better than the looking backward about what you did. It's how do you take your skills and move them forward? So this legal landscape thing was, I thought, a really good tool. And the other thing to realize here, and Ken, it gets kind of back on the LinkedIn thing that you were sharing with the contributors. The second link I put together was a presentation I did about a year ago now, where I actually talked about this idea of trust and realized that whatever engagement you have with LinkedIn is going to be completely different than any other engagement you have with Google Bard or Anthropic or whatever the model you're talking with, because they're not sharing information about you. So realize one of the things, and getting back to what Frank was talking about in terms of sucking you into that subscription, you're going to, whether you want to or not, a certain level of trust using that particular LinkedIn ChatGPT or generative AI engine. What happens is that trust is going to have to be reestablished to every one of these platforms that you work on. So the one thing I did like on that, Ken, is that at least they showed you who the contributors were to that potential answer. So it's giving you at least some basis of what's the term? Not authenticity, but you're actually seeing it. It just wasn't made up out of nowhere, right? That there was potentially an industry leader.
It was originally, we were part of a launch of 300 people or 400 people that could contribute to collaborative articles. And now they've opened it up to everyone.
Yeah, I've seen that.
A year. So that's where the advantage is. In the beginning, we were just kind of going back and forth, like, this is a test, what do you think, kind of brainstorming. And then they've rolled it out to everyone with all different categories. So it becomes a much different mechanism than it did before.
But at least you have a name. Right, you can, like, in other words, you can click on that name, see what that person's background is. You can get a little pedigree. You can get a little bit of the pedigree of that individual, right? On some of these other ones, it's the proverbial black box. You put a question in, the black box does magic and spits out a result.
I put the link in the chat to where you can do that list, the alphabetical list, and I also put a link in the chat to where you can find those plugins. I am going to share the presentation later on, but I wanted to make sure that everyone had that before we left. So this pretty much ends the official part of it. I mean, I'm happy to talk about other things. I just wanted to give everyone a flavor for what AI is looking like on LinkedIn and things that are going on behind the scenes. George can definitely speak to a lot more of the technical stuff going on, but at least if you have an idea as to what's going on, you have an understanding as to how you can promote yourself. Like you can put 100 skills there. They're not going to be relevant for each job, and you're going to not put them the same way. But again, they're doing that because they want to make sure that they meet all the different, because different people have different skills and they want to put on their job specs. They're just opening that up, and it's all part of the game. So I want to thank you, Frank, Jerry, and David.
The danger of AI. I put something in the chat that almost traumatized me. I don't know if you had the chance to read. Some high school boys created some videos and they shared. These videos are classmates in nude. Can you just imagine? So it frightens me to death what AI can do. And you know, this can go into LinkedIn or anything else. Can you talk a little bit about it if you know?
Well, some people on LinkedIn now are actually using AI for their pictures. They're using AI for their background images. And again, there's no way right now to really know what's real and what's not real, or what. And that's the challenge that we all have, because someone actually told me that they put an AI picture of them on there. What do they think? And then you go into the discussion. Well, I'm not this 50-year-old person. I'm now a 25 or 30-year-old person, or something else, because I can be an avatar or something. I mean, it's a very slippery slope, and that's why it is so important to be aware of it. You can sometimes be concerned about it, but at least understand that this is out there. And it's not, I mean, and this is constantly evolving. And a lot of what I'm talking about today is I've seen firsthand. And I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of a flavor as to what is going on, so you can at least be real about it, because I get probably 20 messages a day that are cut and paste AI messages that people want from me. We call it pitch slapping in our industry, because I'm tired of being pitch slapped. And I actually remove connections all the time now as part of my best practice, because and that's part of my latest strategies. When you send a personalized connection request, don't reply back to them right away. Give it some time to resonate, because people are going to think you want something from them right away. And that's kind of a change with all this AI and stuff. You know, let things sit for a little while. So it's all about evolving and how you network.
So Alex, there's no good answer to your question. I'll just give you what the basic frameworks that are in place are working on. And these are in no particular order. The first one is a series of regulations and laws. The only underlying challenge with that is that it's not clear how much interaction all these different agencies are doing. The EU has their guidelines. The US has created theirs. Each independent state is rushing out their own regulations. So right now, if you're into that legal regulation risk, there is regulation soup that's out there that's trying to at least begin putting the regulation that would eventually come to laws. That's number one. Number two, at the model level itself, this is where it's really hard, because you've got the quote unquote open models versus the fee-based models. They're looking to put watermarks within some of these images so that it's going to be, now mind you, you wouldn't be able to see them, but embedding these watermarks. Now, again, I've read things where people are finding ways to take the watermarks out. This is still all in the early innings. So these challenges that are coming up, people are trying to figure out ways around this, or how do you put these levels of protection in it. And it's, you know, the technology is ahead of the safety guardrails at the moment. That's the easiest and best, you know, summary I can give you.
To answer Frank's question, first of all, LinkedIn has pretty much eliminated creator mode per se, and with that, they've eliminated hashtags. They've eliminated other things. They will not come out and say it, but they basically made a mistake, and they made an assumption that people would embrace creator mode the way they did. So little by little, they're taking things off and doing other things along those lines. They're now giving people, or they will give people, the ability to, whether they want to do a connect or follow. It used to be on creator mode, you had to have follow as the default. They're testing out different things along those lines. The reason they got rid of hashtags, the main reason, is that everyone created their own hashtag, and it became too cumbersome. And there was no way for them to figure out, and they never could figure out how to put the top list of hashtags together to suggest hashtags because it almost became like Twitter/X. Everyone has their own thing. And it became, there's probably a million of them out there. So they figured now I still do some hashtags on my posts, but at the same time, I do those because they're very common. There's probably like a million followers or things on there, but I don't do them for any reason. I don't expect engagement from them anymore. And I've actually tested taking some off. It's almost like the whole idea of tagging.
That's an interesting finding, though, Ken. I did not know this about the hashtags because I get it, right? Anybody can create a hashtag. I get that. But hashtag is a form of metadata.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, you know, again, you can rank that metadata however you like. Like, in other words, if you can match it, you give a higher weight to that metadata. And if it's in noise, you just treat it as noise. So I'm kind of surprised they're moving away from that because that really is a form of metadata that would help.
You assume LinkedIn knows how to do this. You're making a big assumption.
I'm talking in general. Oh no, this is just in general, right? So in other words, if I put a hashtag in there, right, you can just by the nature of the beast aggregate the fact that if you're seeing, you know, hashtag jobs, right?
Right.
That's common, right? You're going to be able to see that. If I have hashtag keep pace as an example, you may say I only see this in 0.0001% of the time. I'm going to ignore it. So to me, I'm just surprised that they would throw away any source of data just because the more data they get, the better.
You can still search on hashtags. You can do searches on hashtags. You can put them in, but it just became a case. And what other people have told me is that they weren't sure which hashtag. You can only have 5 hashtags in your title anyway. They weren't even sure which ones to put there because they wanted to market themselves, and it became again a rabbit hole. So I think LinkedIn decided it made more sense to eliminate that as an option from the top.
On the top. Oh, I thought you meant within.
I'm talking about underneath your name.
That
hashtags.
Okay, I got it. I'm sorry.
Anymore.
But I thought you meant within the articles.
No,
Yeah,
I'm saying
I'm
the
talking.
articles are still there, but you can't.
Okay.
You can't have them on your name. They got rid of them.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I missed that. I missed that.
Ken, can you also
if I can put a question in? Yeah.
Can you also talk about where they're looking to see if you want to be verified? I can what that.
Well, the verified, a lot of I have it verified because to confirm that I'm working for a company like Lee Hecht Harrison. You do the verification that way. There's a big issue with that in Europe because they have different privacy issues and things, and a lot of people are not sure they want to share their information there because they're not sure what LinkedIn's going to do with it.
Right.
To be honest, and that's an open-ended question. I mean, I feel comfortable, but at the same time, I put my Lee Hecht Harrison verification, and we actually had someone from Lee Hecht, someone take our contact information and pose themselves as us, and then spammed a lot of people. So we are now rethinking that. The honest to God truth is you have to kind of use your best judgment. I've even said to people now, I used to say on presentations, include your email address in the about section, and I'm saying not anymore because too many people are getting spammed. That's not a best practice anymore because there's so much bad stuff out there. And so I think it is a personal decision, and people will agree to disagree. You know, there's an old saying amongst us coaches, you can talk to 5 coaches, get 7 or 8 answers, which is very true because we're coming from different places.
Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Hey, Ken, thanks for the presentation. So I have a question that I think you mentioned AI assisted profile writing or job description writing, right? So I'm thinking, let's say for us, right, when we're writing any one of those things, I want it to be almost as short as possible, maybe even in bullet points, because, you know, if I can put my stuff into an AI and they can expand it, maybe your audience would have a AI plugin would summarize it, right? So do you see the communication will just condense to a point of, hey, I'll just post the bullet point, right? Because what's the point of expanding it if your audience is using AI to summarize it?
You can ask AI, can you give me a 500 bullet point about section for a technology person, a software engineer in New York? You can be as specific as you want to be. I mean, but my takeaway is just because they give it to you doesn't mean you have to use it. I mean, it's like it's information there, but don't go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry.
When you put the specifics in the prompt, as Ken just spelled out, if there are more than one person giving similar direction to ChatGPT, the results are going to be very similar. So again, your branding is about, almost like your elevator pitch of catching the attention, of differentiating yourself. So one of the things I would suggest is ChatGPT has a relative good command of the English language, right? And technical folks, for the most part, I'm not saying all, in general, English wasn't some of their top things. They gravitated towards technology. So it could give you some good phrases to use and things like that. But please don't use verbatim what ChatGPT is giving back to you, because I'm already seeing that some of the stuff that's coming into me as a hiring manager, I have people from different areas of the country, sometimes from different areas of the world. And what I'm seeing is like 90-95% similar of what they've worded. And I think that what's happening is somebody's going out and publishing on LinkedIn, here's how to use ChatGPT for job search, and a lot of times geared to a specific job. And then people are using that, reusing it. And what's happening is they're becoming very cookie cutter in how they're updating their resume, their LinkedIn, etc. So use it as guidance for words, but please customize it specific to yourself. Don't just, blanketly, I hate to say it, like be lazy and just take what ChatGPT gives you and then, wholeheartedly just reuse it. Take it, modify it, make it specific to yourself, because then it's going to dilute you and it's just going to put you on, the status quo of everybody else who's doing a similar approach.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because no matter how good it is, if it's the same as everyone else's, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I look at resumes. I look at 20 software engineer resumes in a given week, and I'm looking at them and I ask them, what makes you different from everyone else? What are your accomplishments? I mean, I know what you do, but you have to make it part of your brand. And that's a very hard thing for people to do in a general way. I mean, ChatGPT is great for interview questions. Ask them how to answer certain interview questions. It's a great tool for that. It's a great tool for everything, but it does not replace you. It does not replace in-person networking. It does not replace branding. Just take advantage of what it can do to support what you do. So that's it for me. I hope I did not go over too much, David and Frank.
No, not at all.
I just want to say, Ken, I think you did a wonderful job. And the thing that I really love is the engagement with the members who are on the meeting. So, really, Ken, you hit it out of the park, because I asked you to take this approach and I think you ran with it. And I love the engagement. If anybody on the meeting bridge has additional questions, I know David is going to save this session so that it's available on demand. Even if you're listening to it on demand, please feel free to reach out to Ken, to George, to myself, or any of the members that had questions that were very thoughtful and I think very additive to the presentation. Let's keep the discussion going, because to me, this is the digital evolution of the applicant tracking system. Those applicant tracking systems were used by many employers out there. And I think what's in it for LinkedIn is they're trying to replace themselves as being that function for all the employers and the recruiters, and put themselves as the nucleus of that universe. So whether you're a job seeker, whether you're a recruiter, whether you're an employer, you're all coming to them. And the recruiters and the employers spend a lot of money with their LinkedIn presences. And what they're looking to do is build that up, become that center of the universe for going and filling these positions out there.
Definitely go back to the presentation and look at the actual demos as to how they're doing things, because that's the back end of the recruiter side. And the more you understand about that, the better. But nothing replaces in-person networking, whether it's here or somewhere else. I love this club so much. I love getting together with you guys when I can. But above all, take advantage of all the resources in this room. And Frank, I really appreciate the wonderful, you know, I'm happy I was able to meet your expectations, for sure.
I would just change that to exceed.
Excuse me?
I would just change it to you exceeded the expectation.
Oh, okay. I'll take that as a compliment because I really wasn't sure where this presentation was going to go for a little while, but it kind of came together. So great.
I want to,
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I want to share with you guys a thought, something I learned many, many decades ago at the university. I took one course in communication, and frankly, I don't remember a lot from that course except one sentence. In communication, it's not important what you want to say. It's important what the listener wants to hear. And if you take a broad brush and you read LinkedIn profiles, I see so much garbage out there, so much information that I, as a reader, I don't want to read about. There's 4 basic questions that people need and want. One, what do you do? You need to be very clear what is what you do. Because if you are an electrician and I need a plumber, I need to talk to an electrician. Second, who do you serve? Who are your customers? Third, what value this is probably the most difficult one and probably the most important one. What value they can get from you? If you're not clear on what you can provide, they move to the next person. And the last one, which Ken spoke about several times, what's special about you? You have competition. Why should I hire Ken and not George and not Frank or John? These are the 4 questions which I learned about the value proposition. If you follow these guidelines, you'll get there.
And I would suggest what Alex just shared is very critical as you sit back and you try and reflect on what should be in your LinkedIn profile. And taking to what he said, using myself as an example, right? My LinkedIn profile, I have to say, what is it that I'm trying to represent, my brand, and what is the purpose? For me, it's long-term for employment, right? And my career management. Have I done other things? I've written a couple books. Could I sit there and put on there, links to the books and everything else? I could do that, but I'm not trying to get a job as an author. The only reason I did the books was, quite frankly, to capture a lot of the great best practices that we've had in the 22 years of the Breakfast Club, so it could help even more people. And that's why, when we were doing the book, the first one, we found out there was no materials out there for Spanish-speaking people. So we even translated it into Spanish. We put it out there on Audible. Was just to get the message out there to help even more people. But I'm not looking for a job as an author, so I keep that off of my LinkedIn profile, not because I'm not proud of it, but it's not going to help make the case for why to hire me and the value proposition that I deliver within, what I would be looking for as a job. So, it's really critical that it's a fine line between how do you differentiate yourself. You have to differentiate yourself, as Alex just pointed out, within your value proposition of the specific job you're doing. And for people that have been out there in the workforce 20 years, 30 years, etc., you've done many jobs over your time. The skill sets required have changed from when you first got your first job to now. There's a ton of things you could put out there, but you have to filter it down to really, for your position that you're going to be seeking, what are those things that are relevant, not from your perspective, but from the employer perspective? What's going to say, wow, this person is definitely somebody I want to have on my team. This is the desired candidate. And again, a lot of the other people are going to check all the boxes too, but what is special about you? And that's where it comes in now recently. to, making your statement not like a job summary like it used to be on a resume years ago, but really more personalized. What makes you tick? What makes you more valuable than the next person, and what it is you're doing. And, try and just make it authentic and genuine so it connects to that reader and that hiring manager.
I'd add two things, and I brought this up yesterday at PSG, and this is kind of dovetailing with what Frank said. There's two things you need to keep front and center no matter what you are doing in this new world. In no particular order. Number one, learn the language. If you speak old, you will be seen old. You need to understand the currency of the terms, the currency of the language, the currency of what's going on in your space. If you do not have currency of language, I'm telling you, they will know within seconds where you sit on the spectrum. That's number one. Number two, and again, I love sharing this example because I always get a chuckle from people that do it. I gave a presentation 10 years ago, and I shared this with PSG yesterday. And the basic outcome of all 45 elevator pitches I heard were summed up in this following sentence. Hi, my name is George Pace, and I am absolutely fantastic at every single thing you're moving away from. Hire me. You have to be looking forward. What are their challenges? We all know what the challenges are. How do your skills help them solve these forward-looking challenges? If you talk backward, you're going to be seen as backward. So again, you got to think about how your skills are being applied forward to help them solve today's challenges, number one. And number two, the currency of the language today. If you don't have those two, work on those first. Because if you do all of the work of getting connected, and all the work of getting into that interview, and then you're using those terms or those visions that are backward looking, you basically killed yourself.
Yeah, and to George's point, two great ways of differentiating yourself once you're in that interview is ask the hiring manager what keeps them up at night. And the second thing is, what do they see in a candidate that they hire? What are the expectations, let's say, that would make them successful in the first 6 months? Because that's not written down on the job description. That's not publicized anywhere. So if you could get the hiring manager to speak to those things and you have what they're looking for, if you've done it before, if you have a track record in success of achieving what they're looking for, you've now differentiated them real time, one-on-one, that exactly those things that are most critical to them or what they see as being successful, how you could do them, that you've done them before and you're, ready to do them again for them to make their life easier. Because that's really what they want at the end of the day. And another way of finding that out is through your relationships and your networking. If you can network in to somebody that's there and they could tell you about the environment, about the challenges that they're facing, what big projects may be on the horizon, again, then you can make a qualified submission and position your resume, your key letter, so that it addresses those things or highlights those things that you have in your background. We don't want you to embellish non-factually your materials. You're just putting that emphasis because now you have additional information of what that position is going to be responsible for and which way it's going for. Again, that will differentiate you in the eyes of that employer and help you, show and demonstrate that you have exactly what they're seeking.
Frank, can I refine a little bit the second question you suggested?
Sure.
About, you said you should ask the interviewer what he is looking for in you in the future. I want to refine that, because if you ask it this way, they will most likely give you some hard skills, and then you have a lot of competition. The question should be, what kind of personality traits are you looking for in the person hired? This way you guide them thinking, because you know the differentiator is your personality and not the skills.
Agreed.
Frank, how should I interpret you being quiet after what I said?
No, it was that I couldn't get off mute quick enough.
Okay, good.
All right, folks. Well, listen, thank you very much to Ken. This was a wonderful program, extremely insightful. And for those of us that are a part of it the way we are today, we're just blessed to get information from someone who's so well connected and informed. So thank you very much. So want to let you know. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, the way I really look at each of these meetings and presentations is how much information was shared, how much items were learned, and hopefully everybody who attended today is walking away with a lot of additional pointers on things they could do to improve themselves, whether it's if they're actively seeking a job right now or in their career management. And I think this hit on all of those.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. For anyone who wants the chat, excuse me, we are going to download the chat and post it in our group's website, thebreakfastclubnj.com. There is a speakers page, and that's where we will put that. And Ken will forward me a PDF of the slide deck. We'll post it there as well. And for those of you who are itching for the links and such not that are in the chat now, there's in the chat window that you open where all the chat, you will see, I believe it's 3 dots, and that's a menu. Sometimes it's on the top, sometimes it's on the bottom, depending on which interface you're using. Click on the 3 dots and you will have the opportunity to download the chat, and you'll have it for yourself right now. And if you don't see that, I'm sorry, I won't be able to walk you through it. Just wait until we post it the next day or so. Adrian will do that for us shortly. And want to let you know who and what we'll be doing next month, because the Breakfast Club prides itself on being extremely persistent and consistent. We will be right back here next month. It'll be May 11th is the second Saturday of the month. Career coach Paul Sakala will join us to talk about Take Control of Your Job Search, which will talk about the various steps involved in a successful search. And he'll have some tools and worksheets that he'll talk about as well. And hopefully you'll get tremendous information from Paul next month as well. So that's what we will be doing, 8 o'clock in the morning. We will be sending out the email, posting the link, which is a little different next month than this month. So just stay tuned for that over the coming weeks. So once again, thank you to Ken. Appreciate all of your involvement with us. We're keeping the session open, but I'm now going to stop the recording. So until we see you next month, we'll say bye, everybody.